Hello, everyone. My name is That Kodocha Girl.
I am Mahou Shoujo M, and this is
19 o'clock news.
19 o'clock news. I am M. I run the Daily Kodocha account on Twitter, which also has a Tumblr presence, and make silly Kodocha memes.
Yes, and they are lovely. I reblog them every time.
Aww.
And my name is That Kodocha Girl, and I run a YouTube channel where I discuss different things throughout the series, psychoanalyze characters, talk about rarities that are found all across the internet. And I also have a Twitter and Tumblr presence.
Awesome. I think that's a little bit about us. Do we want to talk a little bit about like how we found Kodocha and why we're still in this fandom?
Yeah,
decades later.
That sounds like a good idea because I've been working on a video recently since I actually hit the 100 sub mark a few weeks ago, and I never thought that I would make it to 100 subs making this kind of content, and it's been amazing, finding all these people who are just as passionate about the series as I am. And I found the series about 4 or 5 years ago. I was about 22 or 23 years old and just stumbled upon it on YouTube one day. And I didn't stumble upon an episode. I actually found the opening theme, ironically, 19 o'clock news. And I was like, what in the world is going on in this anime? And I had to see what it was all about. And also, Sana reminded me a lot of how I was when I was in middle school. And I was like, I would totally chase a boy around with a camera like she does in the opening, Mm-hmm. So I watched all the episodes, at least in the first half, because the second half wasn't in English subtitles on YouTube at that point in time. And watching this really horrible quality videos where, they're in the little corner, like, when people are putting up anime episodes illegally.
Oh yeah.
And I was hooked from episode 1, which is rare for me. It usually takes me a while to get into shows, but Kodocha for me was a consistent thing. And I've never really had a franchise or series that I've been very invested in like Kodocha. I've had other interests, like I'm really into gaming. Like I love Legend of Zelda, and like, I was having this conversation earlier with like I always like Star Wars, but Kodocha's just always been a consistent thing for me. And it's definitely my favorite series of all time.
Oh, same for me. I found it back when Funimation had a TV channel, which is about to date me. I was 13. I'm thinking that the year was like 2006 or 7. And I was babysitting at a family's house that had that channel, and was really just like channel flipping after the kid went to bed. And I stumbled upon episode 8 of Kodocha, Fruit Juice Soaked First Kiss, and was very taken by it pretty immediately, and basically went home to find out everything I could about the series. And at the time, I don't think Funimation had started releasing DVDs yet of the dub. So I just jumped right onto YouTube and watched the entirety of the series in like 4-part episodes that were like 3 minutes each. As we did in those days. And it's been my favorite series ever since. I do think I remember one of my takeaways of like watching episode 8, I was like, oh my gosh, like the leads kissed. This has got to be like episode 35 or something, like into the series. And it's like 8 episodes in. They're like, here's the leads kissing. Oh, okay, cool.
Right. You were spoiled right away.
I was. That was honestly, like, as a middle schooler, like nothing made me happier than like smooches and anime. So
yeah, same here.
I lived for it.
Right. And I totally feel the same way, because like my first anime was Naruto, and that's not smooching.
No smooches. Do you get any?
I think towards the end.
Yeah.
That's like way. That's like episode 1002.
Yeah, exactly.
But
And now you've stumbled onto why I've never finished Naruto.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a good anime, but I definitely prefer the smoochy smoochy kind.
Oh yeah. I'm a shoujo gal, and typically we get more smooches or
But that's what makes
meaningful hugs, which
right.
I'll
Me
take.
too. Oh yeah, yeah. Shout out to that. I can't remember which episode it is, but it's like early into the 70s or 80s, I think, of Kodocha, when I think Sana's leaving to do her movie. Oh my god, that moment.
Oh
You know
my
what I'm
gosh.
talking about?
Yes, I do. And I know what episodes it's from because I just did that clip from it and it's episode 65. And that's such a doozy of an episode because you get the confession and then you get the like breakup kind of like all in the same episode. It is emotionally devastating. The junior high years hurt so good.
I know, especially in the manga. Oh my god.
Oh my gosh, the look that they exchange, and oh gosh, we're gonna have to cut all of this because it has nothing to do with our topic for the day. But that look that they give each other after they're arguing about having liked each other forever and how could you not know and all of that devastating look that they give each other at the end of that ruins my life. It has been ruining my life since 2006. Ugh. Anyway.
All right. So today's topic for the podcast is we're going to be talking about the first chapter and the first episode of Kodocha. So I watched the first episode in the English dub. And M, I believe you watched the sub version.
I watched the dub this time around, but I've seen the sub so many times because it's always what I choose to show people. Whenever I'm trying to get somebody to watch Kodocha, I don't try to start them on the dub because it's not finished in the dub. And it just feels like you might as well get used to reading subtitles really quickly because that's what you've got if you're going to complete the series.
And especially in this series when, you have a hyperactive 11-year-old girl who's speaking a mile a minute.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So I watched the dub this time around in preparation for today, but I know the sub episode really well. Do you want to, I think starting first note I have, just generally on the opening theme. One, thank you to Discotheque, wherever you are, for restoring our beloved 19 o'clock news.
Yes,
as the opening theme.
I was watching it. I was watching it on the Blu-ray today, and it looks fantastic. And they did a great job with subbing the, the text in between the scenes of the episode where Babbitt comes in and those little note cards. Like they did an excellent job at subbing that.
Oh yeah, no, they really did an amazing job. I will always be super thankful for what Discotheque has done for Kodocha. It's just huge. In terms of the opening theme animation, I feel like again they're introducing a lot of characters and sort of like the energy of the show, and I think they do a really good job of kind of giving you that taste of kind of what to expect should you continue watching. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so too. And, it's funny. I mentioned how the first time I ever saw that show technically or found out about its existence was through that opening. And when I first saw it, you get the impression that Sana is romantically involved with Akito first because like I was like, oh, she's following around with the camera and she's probably got this big crush on him. That's why she's doing that, because she wants a picture of him. But when you start watching it, you find out, oh, he's like the bad boy and she really hates him. And the whole thing with the camera, we find out later, is to get an embarrassing picture of him.
Oh, exactly. I love it so much. And like it is kind of, the hammer comes out to play in that. Something that I noticed, even like reading chapter 1, certainly in both the opening and ending themes for season 1 of Kodocha, is Tsuyoshi has a large role in it. Like we've got, a lot of Sana, a lot of Akito, obviously, but then there's also just a lot of Tsuyoshi. And I just find that really interesting. And it was kind of the same way, I think, for when the series was first being released or serialized in Ribbon, is there's like all of the art, all of the furoku from those initial chapters is like Sana, Akito, and Tsuyoshi. Just an observation that I find interesting.
Oh yeah, I adore Tsuyoshi. I think and I've made a video talking about this because I feel like he's one of the most important Kodocha characters. I find his character to have a lot of depth to him, and that's another thing I'd like to bring up, the fact that I mentioned how at first I thought Sana was going to be after Kido, like it was a big romantic thing right off the bat. Well, this anime, it I guess how you'd say it subverts your how would you say that?
Subverts your expectations. Like,
thank you. Yeah. I couldn't think of the word.
Oh yeah, I mean it's not your average shoujo.
And like when you meet Tsuyoshi, the first thing that comes to my mind is he kind of reminds me of Usagi's friend at school in Sailor Moon.
Yes. What's his name? Umino.
Yeah.
Umino has a daily account on Twitter with like 1,000 followers, which I just find really comical.
That's amazing.
Good for him. I just think it's weird.
But you go into it thinking that Tsuyoshi's just gonna be like basically just this non-existent side character who's just like very shallow, very just kind of there. But he has kind of an arc in the beginning. It's not a big extensive one, but you have that whole thing with his family going on, and I mean, like, you think he's this calm, docile kid too, and then he has that thing where he blows up with the drop of the hat. But I do like the fact that like Tsuyoshi is a big part of Kodocha, because I feel like he complements the two central characters very well.
Oh, absolutely. I sort of have this headcanon that like when Sana and Akito do finally get married, they have an argument over who, like, whether Tsuyoshi will be maid of honor or best man. I always sort of, because I mean, really, like, I don't get me wrong, I love Aya, I love Fuka, I love their friendship with Sana, but like in terms of closeness,
right,
I think that Tsuyoshi is probably closest to both of them.
I agree.
But that's just me.
I agree.
Bless you. Okay, episode title. The very first dub versus sub thing I noticed was, I'm an elementary school student with an agent. Sure you.
No, it's that other thing. It starts with a P.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm like, sure you observed that difference. That was the first one I flagged.
Yep.
And I have mixed feelings about it, honestly. Like, especially since, like, this is a general issue I have with dubs from that era, and also with like Tokyo Pop's translation also from that era, is I would personally, like, I'm not a anti-localization person when it comes to Japanese translation. Like, I'm not a literal person, but I do think it's not fair to change the meaning of something or to censor it. I think that you should just do it as it is and let the viewer decide where they stand with that. So it does bug me that this is the first of, I think, many little things that they change over the course of this dub. I think if they were to do it again, they probably would do it differently, but it was very common practice at the time.
And speaking of censorship, they actually censored the hairdresser in the first episode when Sana's getting her hair done before Child's Toy. That blonde guy, he's got that really super 90s haircut. He actually has secret feelings for Sana's manager, Ray. They cut that too. And I think the other big one that I noticed is when Sana's like headed to bed that night,
in the Japanese, Misako pulls Rei to the side and is like, only kisses on the cheek until she turns 18. And then in the dub, it's don't stay up all night singing, which I think knowing Misako and Rei and their relationship, like I would totally think it's just Misako messing with Rei for sure.
Oh, definitely.
Because they all, and that's something that comes up in a later episode too, is like they all understand the joke, or like that they're humoring Sana. Sana's the only one that doesn't understand the nature of the relationship. So it bugs me.
I totally agree with you. I can see why they did censor it though. I don't agree with it. But, you know, if they were putting it on American television, I could see American audiences like being outraged by that, especially, you know, with the cutesy nature of the show. You know, it attracts a younger audience. So I could see parents sitting there being like, oh, okay, I don't want my kids seeing that, and not understanding the context of what's happening, because you don't really find out the true story of like what's going on with Rei until a few episodes later.
Yeah, I mean, all things considered, that is resolved somewhat quickly, which I think is positive. And I guess like my only pushback on that is just that the Funimation channel lineup at the time, I mean, it was an anime channel. It wasn't it's not like it was network TV or Saturday morning cartoons or even Toonami or Cartoon Network. So I think that they probably had a little more freedom there, and that they just made a choice that I don't agree with. But
well, whoever's listening out there who has the ability to make a reboot for Kodocha, just make it like the manga, and don't censor anything, and just it'll be beautiful. Yeah, I promise.
It'd be so good. I would really, God, what I would give for a reboot. I would take just like a retranslation and reprint of the manga, which I feel has maybe a slightly better chance at happening. But we'll see.
I think it could happen, you know, maybe in the next decade. I really think it could.
Maybe. I mean, I'm certainly, this is just me trying to like temper my own expectations and hopes and dreams so that I'm not crushed if it never happens. But other things, observations about the dub, there's a lot of overlap with the voice cast with the Fruits Basket cast, which I think a lot of people picked up on at the time. And since Laura Bailey is definitely one of the best voice actresses working today, and she, I think, made a really phenomenal Sana. Keeping up with that speed of talking is huge.
Right.
Also, John Bergmeyer as Rei. For some, like, while I'm willing to accept Laura Bailey playing both Toru and Sana, I have a harder time with John Bergmeyer. I just hear Shigure.
So I have a confession to make. I've never actually watched Fruits Basket.
Oh, I think you'd really enjoy it. So I won't say much more. Jerry Jewell, who does Akito in Kodocha, which I don't think was maybe the right role for him in Kodocha, is amazing in Fruits Basket as Kyo. Definitely the 2019 reboot is amazing. I think you'd enjoy it based on conversations we've had about other series. It's very fun. Definitely add it to your watch list.
I know they came out with a remake of it a couple of years ago. I can't remember when it was, but did they bring back the original VAs?
They did, with the exception of one character. But yeah, for the most part, just about everybody came back from the 2001 dub, which was something that I looked into as well. Obviously, we have a character named Akito in Kodocha. We also have a character named Akito in Fruits Basket, but they pronounce it in the dub Akito. Akito, which always bothered me and is one of the reasons that I tend to sub over dub when it comes to Kodocha. But with the Fruits Basket reboot in 2019, they correctly pronounce it as Akito. And so I was wondering, okay, the Fruits Basket 2001 dub happened around the same time as the Kodocha dub. Was that the same across the board? Had they like made a choice to pronounce that name Akito? And they did. I went and looked up a 2001 Fruits Basket episode and like fast forwarded through to make sure that I was hearing it correctly. But they do. They just made a choice to pronounce it Akito instead of
as someone who's watched the dub more often than the sub of Kodocha, I do still say Akito.
I think I definitely think there's something to be said for like which one you watched first. And since I watched the sub first, I think I'm always going to be in camp Akito. But like I make exceptions to my own stupid rule. Like, for example, Inuyasha is not pronounced Inuyasha, but I'm never going to be able to say it any other way. So,
or like same show, like Kilala, like it's technically Kirara.
Yeah.
Kirara.
Because we don't have L in Japan, which is fine. Yeah, it's interesting to see those little choices. The other interesting pronunciation from the Kodocha dub was Mitsuya instead of Mitsuya.
So I actually, when I was watching it today, I actually made some notes, and all I wrote in my notebook about her was, how in the world did the boys get away with terrorizing the classroom like this? Like, I mean, like Miss Mitsuya, like, yeah, she just would cry and break down, and that's a thing that can happen, that's realistic, but like like
how did we get here?
Yeah, like I do like how Kodocha, because I always like when stories start on the edge, and that's what Kodocha does. It starts on the edge. It starts with tension. But like I would love to know, like, how, like, obviously we know, Akito has the dirt on the teachers, right? But like, we had that other lady, what's her name? Miss Ando.
Oh, yes.
Like how did, like, why didn't she come in there and tear things up, Like,
well, that's something too, is like once the Polaroid situation is resolved, I mean, she goes back to having half decent classroom management skills as a teacher, right? So that my personal thought on it is that like the beginning of the school year was pretty uneventful. Things were going okay. She's also clearly very young. I'm thinking like a first or second year teacher, just lacking that experience. So I think that I think that things go off the rails really once Akito takes that photograph and is basically like, I have this and I will do whatever I want and you will do nothing about it.
Another thing that I was wondering, actually, I never really thought about before, was Tsuyoshi. He's very resistant towards the other boys, and he doesn't really follow along with anything. You don't see him shooting at the teacher with the paint gun. And I wonder, because boys at that age are ruthless. Like, I wonder, why didn't they go after Tsuyoshi? I don't think they ever tried to, but I guess maybe that was because Akito was protecting him.
Yeah, I think that would be my guess. I also feel like too, like with the boys and their reign of terror, they really don't push back on the girls much until the girls start speaking up. They're really mostly harassing Miss Mitsuya. So maybe that had something to do with it as well. Like, if you don't say anything, you're not going to get, pummeled in the face with a soccer ball or whatever the case is.
Turned into a bumpy ghost.
That scene always really makes me laugh. The spiral of Sana's images about what happens to her face. And
It's just... me and Ray go away on a Hawaiian vacation. Oh, Ray. Oh, darlings.
It's so good. I love it so much. That's definitely something about the show. I think that they do a good job, is they're introducing a lot of characters. They're introducing a lot of kind of offbeat situations. But it doesn't feel hard to follow, if that makes sense. Like, yeah. Oh, another little difference, a couple of little differences, but the next one is just honorifics, which obviously we tend to drop those for the most part in English dubs anyway, but Sana calling Akito by his first name instead of Hayama. That one, and I have this problem with manga translations from that era as well. If we ever get to the chapter where Akito calls Sana by her first name for the first time. I have opinions on how they chose to translate that in the Tokyo Pop version. But yeah, so I just find that really interesting, especially since it becomes later a plot point, and the first name versus last name stuff. And I think Kodocha ends both in the manga and the anime with her only ever having called him Hayama.
Yeah, now that I think about it.
You know?
Yeah.
So a thought, something that I observed.
But yeah, when I first started getting into manga and anime, and my first manga that I really got into was Shugochara. And it's kind of like Sailor Moon, but the characters transform into their quote unquote would-be selves. So basically like what they want to be when they grow up. So like one girl like transforms into like a geisha. One guy transforms into a king, you know, stuff like that. And I remember they had a whole section dedicated to the honorifics, and I thought that was really interesting.
Can I ask who the publisher was? Was it Del Rey?
I think it was, but I'm not sure.
Oh, God bless. Del Rey got bought by Kodansha, but I want to say his name is William Gibson. He did Mermaid Melody, Peachy Peachy Pitch, and Tsubasa Reservoir Chronicle. And Del Rey always had a section on honorifics, on cultural things, on puns that don't quite translate into English. And I always really respected that because trying to Americanize it, especially like to me, the whole, you know, you don't call somebody by their first name until you're somewhat close to them. It's not a difficult thing to wrap your mind around. I'm like, you know, once I knew that was the case, I was like, oh, okay. And you roll with it. Like, it's not, I think translators at that time really felt that Americans just wouldn't understand it.
And you were right. It was published by Del Rey.
I knew it. They were so good with their notes. You know, they were definitely my favorite publisher. Kodansha's obviously doing great work, but I really loved what Del Rey did. So look at me go.
Cool. Good stuff.
Yeah, the honorific stuff. Just not that. That's fine. I'm fine. I'll probably rant about this again in the future, so I'll cut myself off now. Yeah. Another interesting little dub versus sub moment, and this I don't think is Funimation's fault necessarily, because they were in. Okay, so when they purchased the rights to Kodocha, they did not get the rights to the song 19 O'Clock News. And apparently, they also did not get the right to even name the band. When Sana runs into the guy at the TV studio, she's like, "Aren't you from the band Kyoto? Instead of Tokyo?" And I'm like, oh my God, are you kidding me? Johnny had that big of an issue that they couldn't even say the name of the band in the dub.
Yeah, I honestly, the first couple times I saw that, and they in the background they have Ultra Relax playing.
Yes.
It doesn't make any sense even more, because like when that happened, and I at that point had done research on the singers of the opening themes, and I was like, it's that, I can't remember her name right now, but it's that one girl that she's got crazy pigtails, and I'm like, that's not a band.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, Ultra Relax. I remember that was one of my first, Kodocha, especially since given the age I was discovering the series, this was probably my first dub versus sub, like strong feelings I ever developed in my youthful life came out of this one. But I remember popping in the Funimation DVD and then Ultra Relax popping up and me being like, wait a minute, where is my jam? Where's my song? Like, and Ultra Relax is a great song. It's such a fun opening theme, but like, it's a very good season 2 opening theme.
Exactly, because you've established all the characters, so now you can put them in a funny situation, a funny background with doing funny dances.
Exactly.
You can't really do that in the first one, but
not really. It's like, what is this show about? Weird dances, I guess. Yeah. Oh man. And you're totally right about or even like at the very end, when they're doing the like next time on Kodocha stuff, I flagged that they were playing Ultra Relax in the background. And so obviously I went to go check to see what they did with the sub, and it's 19 o'clock news. Just crazy.
There are some moments on the Funimation dub DVD. I can't tell you specific episodes, but it happens every once in a while. Every once in a while, they'll have the Tokyo song in the background.
Yeah, we talked about that in the Discord because of that, like that Tsuyoshi episode that had some 19 o'clock news in the background in the Funimation dub.
Yeah,
but it's not one of the versions that's on any of the soundtracks.
Yeah, that always perplexed me because like I really liked that version, and that actually was one of the background songs that stood out to me the most my very first time watching the anime. And when I started like digging and like looking up the soundtracks on YouTube and actually looking up the CDs online, like it was nowhere to be found. I was like, oh, that's my favorite version of that song.
I know, it's so weird. But you're right. I mean, now that I have done a little digging to soundtracks myself, nope, they've got two other versions of the instrumental 19 o'clock news. They don't have that one, which I find really, really weird. And I did not notice until you were the one who posted about it, right?
Yeah.
In the Discord. Okay. Interesting.
In fact, and I'll have to probably find the scene because I planned on having another video similar to that to show that there's another song that I can't find on the soundtracks. It's a slower version of Sana's Samba. And it's in a couple of the episodes. I can't think of which one's at the moment, but it just plays during the very mellow scenes. And I always thought that was the best version of that song too. And they didn't even include that on the soundtrack. So whoever is in charge of that, we need another soundtrack.
I would totally take another one because there are definitely some instrumental pieces that are missing on all three. I'm like, but then of course, like on the third one, you get like 5 different versions of Always Be With You, but there was no room for slowed down Sana Samba, but whatever, it's fine.
And this is kind of an unpopular opinion, but I am not the biggest fan of that song.
Of Always Be With You?
Yeah.
Oh man, I like it better instrumental. The lyric version doesn't do much for me.
See, I'm the opposite. I prefer the lyric version because it's in that, I believe it plays during that one scene we talked about earlier, the hugging scene.
Yes, it does.
And that's why I like it, because it makes me think of that scene. It makes me feel all warm and fuzzy inside.
Oh man.
But other than that, it's good. I mean, I don't hate it, but I'm not a super fan of it like I am of the first opening or even the third ending, which is my favorite ending.
Love Me Deeper is a jam and a half. I'm always going to have such a soft spot for Panic though. We could do an entire episode just on like the soundtracks. Add it to the list.
Yep.
Oh man. Oh, and then like favorite episode moment, I think, is just a chef's kiss use of silence when Sana shoots Akito with the ink gun.
And then she says, now then, let's start with you shutting up.
Yeah.
I was like, girl boss moment.
Oh my gosh. Yes. No, just like, but man, like, and they don't shy away from like taking some time with that moment and like sitting in the discomfort of like that being quiet. It's so good. Oh man. Every time I've shown it to friends, they've been like, oh, what?
Yeah, it's amazing. Like that moment was like, for me, that was like, okay, I'm watching the rest of this. This is amazing. An anime has never made me feel that way before, made me feel like, okay, this is it. This is the best character ever.
Yeah.
And I'm a little biased. Everyone's opinion matters. If you don't think Sana's the best, I'm sorry. Sana is the best.
I love our girl. Really excellent episode 1.
For sure.
Do you have any other notes on the episode itself?
So this is actually not a dub versus sub difference or even a manga anime difference, but something that Obana wrote in one of her notes was that she originally intended for Akito to have real guns in the school instead of paint guns.
Yeah. Oh, Obana. This could have been a very different series if she had pursued that vibe.
I know.
And I think Kodocha already handles some darker and more serious topics more in the manga than in the anime, I think. But that would have been, I think, more challenging for Akito to come back from, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
He's already got some stuff to answer for in his reign of terror, but a real gun, I don't know.
I totally agree with the fact that it would have been a lot harder for the audience to have empathy for Akito if he brought real guns to the school. But when you think about it, it was a way better decision, not just because of that reason, but for having the paint guns, because it fits the theme of the show, child's toy. They're toys.
Yes,
so
exactly. I think that was a good call, Obana.
Yes.
for chapter 1 of the manga, I think the thing that hits me most immediately is how different the art looks at the start of the series.
Oh yeah, you don't really notice it when you're reading through it, but then when you look at it, her art definitely improves over time, I think.
She was so young when she started this series. She finished it after 10 volumes, and then, which I think was around 4 years, 94 to 98, I think. She was younger than us when she finished writing Kodocha, which is wild to me. So it's interesting to see kind of what changes and what doesn't. I feel like any of the chibi stuff stays pretty consistent throughout the whole series, but definitely the close-ups, the eye design in particular, looks so different. It looks even just a couple of chapters later,
Yeah, I think the eyes, that's where she improved the most, was the characters' eyes. They're so detailed, and she gets better and better at getting more detailed and making them more emotional.
Oh, for sure. I love her eye designs. I cannot think of another mangaka that does eyes as detailed as she does.
Yeah, I can't think of one either.
Yeah. I the first time my partner saw me watching Kodocha, he was like, "Oh, so they spent all of their budget on the eyes?" Maybe, but you don't have to put it like that.
So my husband, and no one knows who he is, but he's gonna be so mad at me for saying this, but I showed him Kodocha, and he watched the first 2 arcs with me, and during the part at the very end of the first arc, he cried a little bit.
That's the what do you wait now I'm like, which one, what do you consider the first arc? Is that Akito's family stuff?
Yeah, and the end of it's when she has that TV movie and she's pretending to be his mother.
Yes. Oh, it's so, and again, that's what, 6 episodes in.
Right.
Really, no punches pulled. Oh, I love that. I can't wait till we get to the manga version of that, so we can talk about it more. But yeah. Oh, the other thing, weird manga thoughts, or that scene with the gun, at least in the Tokyo Pop translation, Sana was like, "If this gun was real, you'd be dead right now." Girl, what?
Yeah.
Ma'am?
Oh yeah, I remember that, because I remember getting to that part in the manga and I wasn't really impressed with it, and then I read that and I was like, oh, okay then.
Willikers lady, yeah. Girl, that is so scary. And that's just a few pages in. I mean, this one chapter deals with roughly the first 2 episodes of the anime, and it's just a lot for an introduction. But I think she does a good job.
For sure. I mean, I haven't seen, and maybe I'm biased, but I haven't seen a introduction or first episode of an anime that has grabbed me as much as Kodocha has. I mean, like, that ending has stayed with me for so many years now. Like, and even after rewatching the first episode before our podcast today, I was like, it still has the same effect on me. Like, it just hits me the same way.
Yeah. Oh, I totally hear that. Yeah. I think it's one of the things that's made it a lasting favorite of mine. I think is the really careful balance of humor with the serious stuff. Like, that's my favorite kind of genre of anything is I came here to laugh, but now I'm crying because I am emotionally invested in these characters. And Kodocha
same
meets
here.
that to a T. So yeah, but like really, I think all in all, perfect first chapter, perfect pilot, episode 1, whatever you want to call it. No complaints. 10
Totally
out of 10.
agree.
No notes.
Yeah. And then, we talked about the music as well. And I think the first ending theme really, it just really hits it home at the end of the episode. It builds that suspense.
It's one of the things I love about that song. Is it really, it's such a good, like, you always know, like, oh, this is gonna be real when they start playing it kind of as the last few beats of the episode. Kodocha's instrumentals generally I really enjoy, and I think it's one of the only anime soundtracks I can like listen to while I'm doing other things, like working. I have a work
totally
Kodocha
agree.
playlist. Maybe I'll post that for everybody someday. We'll see.
That'd be awesome. Yeah.
Well, do you have any other final thoughts on?
Well, that's all I've got. I mean, I said what I've thought about the ending. I think, and I know I've mentioned this in a video, but I think that the ending of the first episode is like the perfect setup for what happens after, throughout the entire rest of the series. I think it's absolutely perfect for, you know that they start out with this antagonistic bond, but you also know you can feel the the romantic tension.
Oh, yes, completely agree. Oh my gosh. Yeah, this was a pleasure. I'm so glad that we're doing this, and I'm really excited for other topics and things to come. And if you've, dear listener, have made it this far, thank you for listening.
I had a blast doing this. I feel a lot more comfortable doing this now, and I'm really excited to explore different parts of the world of Kodocha.
Yeah, me too. More to come, and we will see you next time.
See you next time.
Thanks for listening to 19 O'Clock News, a Kodocha podcast. 19 O'Clock News is hosted by That Kodocha Girl and Mahou Shoujo M. We love making new friends. Feel free to join us in the Kodocha Discord under Kodocha_media. 19 O'Clock News is not affiliated with any current or previous rights holders to Kodomo no Omocha by Miho Obana.